From script to screen, every film is brought to life by visionary creatives and executives, all sharing one mission: to captivate the audience. Hosted by award-winning movie strategist Kevin Goetz, our podcast, Don't Kill the Messenger, offers a filmmaking masterclass through intimate conversations with Hollywood's most influential voices. And now, your host, Kevin Goetz.
The people who remain successful through multiple periods of Hollywood aren't just talented, they're adaptable. My guest today is someone who successfully navigated nearly every major era of the modern movie business. From publicity and marketing, to running major studios, to producing hit films independently, to leading the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences for 4 consecutive terms, Sid Ganis has remained at the center of Hollywood for more than 5 decades. He helped shape the marketing campaigns for The Empire Strikes Back and Raiders of the Lost Ark at Lucasfilm. He oversaw films like Fatal Attraction, Ghost, and Forrest Gump during his studio executive years, and later reinvented himself again as a successful independent producer. Along the way, he earned a reputation as one of the most trusted, respected, and quite frankly, well-liked people in the business. Sid, you're coming to us from Hawaii today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Kevin, I love the introduction. All the accolades I totally appreciate. And, I say to that, who me? But you know what I love more? I'm here in Hawaii because my grandson is graduating high school.
A big mazel tov on that, and I am thrilled for you. Sid, I usually jump in with where you're from, et cetera, which I plan to do because we're both Brooklyn boys. But I wanted to go for a more provocative question right off the bat, which is tell the listeners something that we don't know about Sid Ganis.
What you don't know about me, it's probably the same thing that many of the other folks that you talk to might say or think. With me, it's, well, yeah, but what am I going to do tomorrow? How am I going to make a dent in this world that we live in, the general world that we live in, not just the show business world? And now at my age, in the morning, you don't know that I wake up and say, oh, I'm up. How nice.
What is the thing you're most proud of in terms of life first and the business second?
The life stuff really has to do, I just talked to you about my grandson graduating tomorrow. It is this family of mine. It's a good one. It's not bad, We've been kicking around now for many years. And thanks to Nancy, who's standing not far from me here, and my kids, and now my grandkids and extended family, and my heritage. I'll talk to you about that if you'd like.
I do want to hear about that. You're talking about your Greek and Jewish heritage?
Yes.
I had 2 Greeks at my house for dinner last week. Jim Giannopoulos was over with his wife Anne, and Christina Cornelius was over as well. And Nia Vardalos was going to come, but she had to go to London to do something with her play, and Rita and Tom were out of town. But I didn't even know you were Greek. I didn't know you had that heritage. By the way, I would have flown you in to join that. Tell us about that. That's a very interesting and unexpected part of your life that I didn't know, that heritage.
I'm a Greek Jew. My grandparents, 1906, ran away from Turkish oppression in Greece and found their way to the Lower East Side of New York City, not unlike many of the immigrants around, and raised a family. 6 kids, my father and 5 sibs, and eventually us guys.
Sid, I was at a wedding a few weeks ago with Alex Yaminigian was there, and so we spent some time together, and we got to talking. He had written a book for his family, not for public consumption, and he talks about in the book, he doesn't even know I read this yet, but his family came also to flee Turkish persecution from the Armenian side and fled to Greece as a result of that. Isn't that interesting that you both share that in terms of your grandparents?
Yes. Is he Jewish?
Armenian.
We're Jewish. That had nothing to do with the Turks nailing us because they were after all the Greeks in that part of Greece especially.
But you were Jewish in Turkey and then Greece? Like they were
Totally.
both mom and
Yeah.
dad?
No, my father. So my grandparents. And we're not Sephardic and we're not Ashkenazi Jews. We're a thing called Romaniote Jews. Have you ever heard of that? Most people have not.
Are those from Italy? Because those were the first Jews, the Italian Jews.
Yes, from Italy. But Jews that wandered into Greece one day and stayed there from Palestine,
Sure.
and stayed there. And there we were, Romaniotes. And you're exactly right. We are the oldest Jewish sect.
And when did you guys go to Brooklyn?
From the Lower East Side, Grandma and Grandpa hit the road across the bridge and wound up in Flatbush and Bensonhurst. And the whole family was there.
That's exactly where my family's from. My father's from Flatbush. My mother's from Bensonhurst. God, Jewish geography. Sid, tell me how a young boy from Brooklyn gets to work for George Lucas.
It's a simple story. Here it is. Kid from Brooklyn, Madison High School, fine, happy, lower middle class family.
Good student?
Nah, average student. Social, with my pals, the way we all were. You were the same in Bensonhurst or Flatbush.
Did you love the movies?
Yes.
So you liked the movies. You were an okay student. You had a nice life.
A good, not wanting anything life. I had 25 cents in my pocket, and that did get me in to single theaters, no multiplexes or no plexes or anything, but one after the other. Children's price during the week.
Did they give
25 cents.
plates to children and stuff like that?
No plates.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
Of course I do.
Listeners, they used to give you like swag, I guess would be the only way to say it. There were also trading stamps, if I recall, mostly from the grocery store, but then also I think the movie theaters did it.
But listen to you. You're into nostalgia.
I know, but that's, getting to the heart of the person, I think, is really important. So what was the first movie that you saw at one of those single screen theaters?
That's funny that you asked, because there was a reason I was thinking about it the other day. The first movie I saw on my own, that is to say, taking my 25 cents and walking 4 blocks to a theater called the Nostrand on Nostrand Avenue and seeing the movie Gunga Din. Then it was a newish movie, turned out to be a classic movie. That was the first time. And then as I grew up, my friends and I would go every single Saturday, just like we hear all the time about kids, boys, girls, going to the movies with their pals on Saturday afternoon and just enjoying it and having fun and having popcorn and raising hell.
Did you go to school after high school, or did you go right into the workforce?
Well, I did. I went to Brooklyn College for a short period of time, Kevin, for a year and then the beginning of another semester, which is when I said, this isn't for me. And nothing's happening here. And by now I was like 18 years old and saying, oh my God, what am I going to do with my life? So I went home the day I quit Brooklyn College. Dad was a cab driver and he worked nights. So he was working. I came home and said, Mom, I just quit school. And my mother looked at me and said, okay, Sydney, what are you going to do now? And it hadn't entered my mind that there was something I had to do now.
Are you kidding? Really?
Yeah. Which part?
That you left college without having a plan at all?
I really didn't have a plan, Kevin. I knew I was going to get a job, or at least I was going to try to get a job. And this is where it all starts. So that day, I went to the candy store and bought the New York Times. And the reason I say that is because usually in my household, we read the Daily News and the Daily Mirror. We didn't read the big, important New York Times newspaper. But I did. And in the New York Times, there was this thing called the want ads for jobs. And there it was. It said, wanted, office boy in show business publicity office.
Oh, my God.
Must want to be in show business. So, Kevin, here's what happened. I learned how to type in junior high school, typed out a little note and sent it off. And a couple of days later, I got a note back and it said, thank you for applying for the job, but we filled it. So this is where life changes, Kevin. I took that note and instead of tossing it out, I put it on the kitchen counter. I remember it as though it were a couple of days ago. That afternoon, my Uncle Phil, and my Aunt Estelle came by. In those
Wait a minute.
days, Kevin,
No, you didn't have an Aunt
uh,
Estelle and an Uncle Phil. I mean, we all had an Uncle Phil and an
you
Aunt
all, of course,
Estelle.
you had one.
Well, of course we had. I had both of those.
They came by, and in those days, Kevin, you well know that you didn't have to make an appointment and send a text and do the thing. You just came by, you know.
Course.
So Aunt Estelle and Uncle Phil came by, and Uncle Phil said, "What are you doing, Sid?" And I said, I'm trying to get a job, Uncle Phil. And I turned to the kitchen counter, and I said, "Here, look at this." And Uncle Phil read the note that said, "Sorry, we filled the job, Lee Salters." And you know what he said to me?
What?
He said, "I know that guy." And that's the beginning of my career.
I have chills.
Well, because it's the truth, Kevin. You know, those things do happen.
Okay, so what happened? He called on your behalf?
Called Lee, this guy, his friend Lee Salters, and I got the job.
Wait a minute. So they hadn't really hired someone?
They hired another guy, David Rush, and they hired me.
You know his name, David Rush. I love that.
I remember him. I try to find him.
So Uncle Phil essentially is responsible for the kismet that got you into business.
Exactly.
Wow. Call out to Uncle Phil. Now, let me ask you how long you stayed in publicity before you got your next gig.
Well, I worked for Lee for a total of 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, I was making $70 a week. And what was I doing? I was the office boy. I was getting the coffee, learning the business, reading the papers, going down to the newsstand twice a day, one for the morning papers, one for the afternoon papers, to see what Walter Winchell and Earl Wilson and Dorothy Kilgallen and all those guys put in their columns about our clients. And our clients...
Oh, so it was personal publicity.
They were personal publicity and David Merrick Broadway shows. So it was both.
What did you learn most from Lee Salters, by the way?
Perseverance, a kind of a frantic effort and need to get the job done, to get those column items out.
And urgency.
Urgency. I said frantic, you said urgency. I like it.
But Sid, you were about to tell me who he represented, and I interrupted you.
He represented Anne Bancroft, Eli Wallach, Oscar Homolka, the Stratford, Connecticut Shakespeare Festival, and then this ingenue kid who was in I Can Get It For You Wholesale down the street named Barbara Streisand.
I think I've heard of her.
She was a kid doing I Can Get It For You Wholesale and getting some notices for...
And a Tony nomination, if I'm not mistaken.
Did she get a Tony nomination?
I believe she did. Sid, let me ask you why you left there, and did you have an offer to go somewhere?
I left there because, get ready for this, Uncle Phil said, I have a friend who is the head of the publicity department at 20th Century Fox. And remember, Kevin, in those days, well, you can't remember because you weren't even born by then.
The exploitation department, wasn't it?
Well, the thing was, in those days, 20th Century Fox corporate was in New York City.
Who was the guy that Uncle Phil knew?
His name was Ed Sullivan. He was a big guy, and they called him Big Ed Sullivan.
Not really Ed Sullivan.
No, not the Ed Sullivan, a different one.
Okay,
Big Ed Sullivan.
But I was going to ask you about Uncle Phil. What did he do that he was a great connector?
Okay, yeah, of course, I haven't told you yet. Uncle Phil, at one point, worked for Lowe's. When they had theaters all over the city, he was a publicist at Lowe's. But then he went into the restaurant business and worked for Restaurant Associates in New York City. And they had very high-end restaurants like the Four Seasons and the Forum of the 12 Seasons.
Is that how he knew all these people?
That's how he knew all these
Incredible.
people.
Incredible.
They'd come to the restaurant, and you know what he would do? Uncle Phil would cuff them. You know that term, cuff them?
No.
Give them their lunch free because they would bring their clients, their fancy clients, to the restaurant to be in the restaurant.
Oh, I love that. He'd cuff them.
Don't ask me why that word goes with a free lunch, but it does. Somehow.
And so as a result of that, it's like giving concierges a break who are recommending restaurants for their...
Yeah, that's right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's genius.
So, Kevin, here's the thing. Uncle Phil said, go see Big Ed Sullivan. And I did. And Ed Sullivan said, okay, thank you. Good kid. You're a good young man. You'll have the job here. So I got the job and I went back to Lee Salters and I said, Lee, I'm leaving. And that's when this man told me the following: "You'll never make it in this business," quote unquote. He's a darling man, Lee, and I love him, and he's long gone, but he did say those words to me. He was pissed that I was leaving him.
Oh, that's why he said it. I thought he was saying it because maybe you were too nice. Maybe you didn't have that sense of urgency or franticness or whatever.
He didn't like that I was leaving.
Oh, my God. You'll never work again. Yeah. Now, let me ask you something. Did he ever make amends on that?
Yeah, I didn't know what to do except almost fall down in front of him.
And cry.
But I never bore him that grudge. I just didn't. I don't know why. I didn't believe it, I guess.
You know, Sid, I get the impression that you don't have any grudges. And I also get the impression that there are very few, if any, people that you truly, truly dislike. And that's part of your...
one.
You got one? Wow.
Yeah, and even this guy, it's long gone. Who cares?
That's interesting because to me, it never pays to hold on to any of that hate or negativity. It so doesn't affect the other person ever. It only affects you. So I tend to be very forgiving and move on. Now, I don't want them in my life. That's a whole nother thing. But I don't want to hold that negativity ever. So that's funny you said that. So you stay at Fox for a time?
I stayed at Fox during some tumultuous years.
Wait a minute. You weren't there during Cleopatra, were you?
Exactly.
With Jack Brodsky?
With Jack Brodsky and Nat Weiss. Exactly. You really did do your research, man.
The studio almost went under.
Well, the thing was, I was hired as a staff writer, but then the guy who I immediately worked for, a guy named Dick Brooks, left, and he was the newspaper contact. In New York City, there were 7 newspapers in those days.
And who were the other areas? What were the others broken into?
Radio and television.
Got it.
Trade press. Magazines. Magazines. Remember magazines?
I think I sort of do. Life and Newsweek and Time and all those magazines.
Look.
Those weren't trades, though. Those were the magazines.
No,
right?
They weren't trades. No, the trades were
Hollywood Reporter and Variety.
Hollywood Reporter, Variety, but there was also Motion Picture Daily and Motion Picture Herald. And
the fact that you could talk about those days in the 60s is so cool.
I can.
Our listeners are going to be very interested to hear. Now, I understand Cleopatra did not actually bring the studio to its knees. It was already at its knees. In fact, Cleopatra made money.
It wasn't a gigantic hit, but it also wasn't a failure. It was just the most expensive movie.
Did you know Joe Mankiewicz?
During Cleopatra, I did not know Joe Mankiewicz. Later on in my life, thank goodness, I worked for Joe Mankiewicz for 2.5 years on a movie, and this incredible man, director, humorist, satirist, cynicalist. Is there such a word as cynicalist?
We're going to make it up right now.
Make it up right now. Taught me about life and life in Hollywood and his disdain, always with a smile, for Hollywood. Joe, one of the greats.
You know, there's a wonderful call out, and I know Ben Mankiewicz has been so kind and mentions me in my books on Turner Classic Movies. His uncle was Joe Mankiewicz, and he narrates a marvelous podcast. If you haven't heard it or any of our listeners.
I've heard it.
It's called The Plot Thickens. I'm telling the listeners to check it out, and you'll learn so much about Cleopatra, how Joe Mankiewicz had the worst experience of his life on the picture, and also what a distinguished, incredible, insane career that man had.
Fantastic. Thank you for saying that last part, because he did. And I met him, not during the time I was in New York City working on Cleopatra for Jack Brodsky, but years later when he made one of his last films called There Was a Crooked Man. Not a great one by any means.
I don't even know that picture. Film. How do you like that?
Listen to this cast. Kirk Douglas, Henry Fonda, Hume Cronin.
All desperate to work with the great Joe Mankiewicz. And
there it was.
That's insane. What an honor that must have been.
You bet it was.
One of my favorite movies of all time is, of course, All About Eve. It's just the perfect movie, isn't it?
Kevin, you know what? Let me just say something here. We can go on and talk forever, and I hope we do on this podcast. But I'm absolutely grateful in my life to have worked for Joe, but worked in this incredible world that you and I live in and work in, and now working with my wife. The best part of this now is I'm working with Nancy, and
Nancy Holt Ganis.
that's her.
Nancy, are you there? I just want to do a shout out to you.
She's not here now.
Oh,
She's
okay.
elsewhere.
Well, I saw her walking behind you
Yeah, she
just a
did for a
moment ago. But Nancy's a pretty extraordinary woman in her own right.
Yeah, she is. So what I'm expressing to you now, really, and maybe worthwhile on this podcast, is my gratitude. And my gratitude to everybody around me and the people in my life who have helped me through this business of valor.
And Sid, we're grateful to you. And I have a particular memory of, it must have been 20 some odd years ago, where I was boarding a plane. The phone rang, I picked it up, and Kevin, it's Sid Ganis. Hi, Sid. I'm so excited to tell you you just got voted into the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. I said, what? What? Oh, my God. I started crying, and you're the one that delivered the news. You were president at the time.
Yeah.
You know what also I appreciate so much is you are in the marketing and PR branch.
Yeah.
Which is something that speaks volumes about who you are, and also the gratitude that you're talking about, because you could have left to join the executive branch, the producer's branch, but you stayed with marketing and PR. Why'd you do that?
Because it's my home, man.
I handed you that one, Sid.
Thank you. It's my home. It's my chops. I know the business, whatever, or, I stumble through the business, and I know my marketing and PR.
Coming through marketing, as you did, and not creative development per se, what do you think that did in terms of your understanding of audiences?
That's why that's such a great branch and such a great discipline to know, because it teaches you the main thing. What does an audience want? What's an audience looking for? You never quite know. You learn, of course, that you never quite know what an audience wants. You have a sense of what an audience wants, and then you work off that sense, but you never quite know what an audience wants.
Can you tell me what Sid has mostly learned about audiences that many other executives in your position, either running studios or as an independent producer, don't know or have yet to figure out, perhaps?
Well, Kevin, part of this is what I know you know well. Audiences are predictable only to a point. I totally appreciate the predictability of an audience. What's in the atmosphere? What's of interest to young people these days? But what I also know, and I'm thinking about now, is this thing about if the story is honed and the actors and the action are reasonable, audiences will say, yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty interesting. So I guess I've learned the yin and the yang of it. Yes and no. You can figure it out, and then you can't figure it out. And then the other part of it, the main thing is, and it's worked with me all through my career, when you're in marketing, you got to sell it. You got to convince an audience to come around. And when you have the goods, man, when the story is good and the work is fine, man, you got something.
Or it's yours for the losing. It's like yours for the losing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And every once in a while, guess what? You lose it.
Of course, but that's often for circumstances beyond your control. There's industry, there's geopolitical, there's all sorts of things, weather.
Well, there is that. There's all the geopolitical stuff. And then just to say, because there's truth in this too, every once in a while you botch it. You just plain old botch it.
It's true. I've seen it time and time again. And yet you know that the intentions were great and nobody goes in to try to do something wrong. But sometimes you take a risk and it's not the right risk. But if you own it, you learn from it, you move on to the next one.
Can I tell you a story about predictability and unpredictability sometimes doesn't work? I have a little story here.
Sure.
It's about the discipline of market research and about showing an audience a movie and then there being a theory about the movie and then that theory doesn't work. Here it is, very simple.
Please.
Now I'm at Paramount Pictures. And lucky enough to have a script that we worked on. Now with running the studio at this point now. We have this movie Ghost.
I was with you. And by the way, the number of events that we have been at and through together over the years.
Yeah, Kevin,
it's
sure.
Hundreds.
Yes. How nice.
How nice.
How very nice.
Sorry.
Very
But
nice.
you know what? I'm going to hold that question until after the break. So when we come back, we're going to talk to Sid about his arrival at Paramount. We have to bring Lucas into it first, of course, and also talk about Colombia and what's happening afterwards. We'll be back in a moment. Listeners, the Motion Picture and Television Fund is a nonprofit charitable organization that supports working and retired members of the entertainment community. This wonderfully run organization offers assistance for living and aging with dignity and purpose in the areas of health and social services, including temporary financial assistance, case management, and residential living, and has been a crucial lifeline to thousands during and beyond critical times that our industry continues to experience. To learn more, visit mptf.com. Please join me in helping others in our industry during times of need. There are so many ways to offer support and get involved. Thank you. We're back with the multi-versatile Sid Ganis. He's an overall mensch and a really important part of our business. Sid, you started to talk about Paramount, and when you arrived there, and you were going to tell us a story about a particular movie called Ghost, which was a massive hit. Tell us the story.
There was a moment when it was time to show the cut of the movie Ghost to a research audience. And there I was. In those days, I was now the head of the studio, so wonderful accomplishment on my end. But here was an important movie that we were taking out for the very first time.
I want to say we went to the Sherman Oaks Galleria.
My gosh, Kevin.
I don't know how I do that, but
How the hell do
I don't
you
know.
remember
Am I
this?
right or wrong?
You're right.
And I remember Howard Koch Sr.
Howard Koch Sr., of course, was the executive producer of Ghost. He came in halfway through, and the movie was in production when Howard came in. There was the bickering on the set.
You needed him to be the consigliere.
Consigliere. He was a leveler, totally. He was great, wonderful, aging, wonderful, handsome, great, beautiful man. And there he was, helping out in a very big, wonderful way. But here's the unpredictability of our business, Kevin. I'm going to tell a story on a guy who I adored. I think he was your boss, the wonderful Joe Farrell.
Oh, yes, of course. For 16 years, Catherine Pora and Joe were my bosses.
And I want to tell everybody who's listening and watching this that I adored him. A wonderful man. Kevin just said it. Now I'm saying it. So there must be some truth in it. So the film played at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, and I was standing in the back. And Joe Farrell, this man who knew everything about movie making and predictability and research and knew the game, but knew it from a creative point of view and also from a statistical point of view, walked up to me, and I will never forget it. People were just putting out the research cards to the audience. Joe Farrell looked at me and he shook his head. No. He said, nope, and walked away. He was saying to me, Sid, this movie's not going to work. That's what Joe said. The predictability and unpredictability. Joe Farrell, I revere him. Everybody listening and watching this. He said no. And then the audience said, yes.
Well, we all do it. I said it on Barbie before it was a movie. When I heard the concept of it, remember, it didn't have Greta Gerwig. It didn't have Margot Robbie. I just heard it, and it was floating around Hollywood, not getting made. I was brought in by Mattel as a consultant. I basically said, run from this. And Robbie Brenner, my dear friend who runs Mattel, said to me, I can't run from this. I'm running the television and movie division. I have to embrace this. It's our biggest property. I said, okay, then make it work.
Okay. So there you go.
And by the way, she did. And they did.
But that's just it. You just verified the theory that there's predictability and there's unpredictability.
In fairness to Joe and to myself, we're more right than wrong.
Okay.
But my God, none of us know anything, do we?
No.
That's great, man. That is so great. I want to ask you about Lucas. We can't ignore that because that was a period of time before you got to Paramount.
Yes. So along the way in my career, when I was working at a company called Seven Arts in New York City, this is before California was in my life. So this was in the mid 60s. I met this guy. His name was Francis Ford Coppola.
Had he done The Godfather yet?
No Godfather.
No Godfather
in those
yet.
days, I was working at Seven Arts. Ray Stark was one of the partners in Seven Arts with Elliot Hyman and Ken Hyman. And Ray Stark introduced me to him on the phone because Francis was about to make his second movie. He had made a movie called Dementia 13, but he was about to make a movie called You're a Big Boy Now. And he was going to do it in New York City. So Ray Stark wanted me to meet him, and I met him on the phone in 1963, I think. And in the year 2026, this very year, this very day, he and I are pals. So it's a good phone call. So then I moved to California, Los Angeles, and Francis was making Finion's Rainbow at Warner Brothers, and I was working very unhappily in the Warner Brothers publicity department at the studio in Burbank. And Francis said to me, "Hey, what are you doing during lunch? Come, I want to show you a little movie." And I said, okay. We went to the certain screening room at Warner's, and he showed me a short called THX 1138 4EB.
I've never gotten chills twice in a podcast.
He showed me that short and a couple other people he invited. And he said, in the back of the screening room, there's the guy. His name is George Lucas. And as I was walking out, Francis was standing there. He said, "Sid, this is George." And this little guy, I mean, slim, little, quiet guy said, "Hello." And I said, "Hello." And that was that for a number of years until one day, Francis said, "George wants to talk to you." And George Lucas, after Star Wars, this was 1979, said, "Would you like to come and work for me, first in Los Angeles and then in San Francisco?" And I said yes, and started working for him just as Empire Strikes Back was going into production. And a movie called More American Graffiti was about to be released at Universal. That's when I started working for him.
So history in the making. You were there.
History in the making. I worked for George for a wonderful total of 6.5 years, first in LA, then my first foray working for him in San Francisco.
You still friends?
Oh, yes. He's a little busy right now, though, isn't he?
I'll say this weekend.
Building a museum.
Yeah, that has threatened to open many times already.
It's opening September 23rd.
I mean, I cannot wait for this museum.
He and his wife, Melody, and his life's work collecting art and some of his Star Wars art. And, be sure that there'll be some of that.
So you'll be there on the 23rd.
I'll be there probably a day or two before.
So, Sid, you go from Lucas to Paramount?
I go from Lucas to Paramount. And the reason I go from Lucas to Paramount is I lived and worked in San Francisco, but George, he wasn't the most communicative guy in town. Wonderful, wonderful man, but he's got other things to do, different than hobnobbing around.
Like invent worlds.
Yeah. So he would send Sid Ganis to Los Angeles to be with the guys at Fox on the Star Wars movies and the guys at Paramount on the Indiana Jones movies, on Raiders of the Lost Ark. And it was when I was visiting twice a week from San Francisco to LA at Paramount to talk about the marketing of this new movie called Raiders of something, of an Ark or something like that.
Raiders of something, an Ark.
The guys at Paramount noticed the work I was doing with them, very happily doing with them. And at one point, Frank Mancuso said to me, "Hey, come work for us. Come back to Los Angeles."
So was that before Ned Tannen or during Ned Tannen?
It was during Ned Tannen. Ned Tannen was the head of the studio.
Mm-hmm.
And Frank said to me, "Come to LA. You'll be the head of marketing and distribution, and then you'll be the head of the studio.
Wow.
And by then, I had met Nancy in San Francisco and fell deeply in love with Nancy in San Francisco.
What did she do in San Francisco?
She was working at KQED. She was working in public broadcasting, PBS, in San Francisco.
Ah.
And it was because of Raiders of the Lost Ark that I met her, because good old Ronald Reagan cut funds for the arts in those days. And PBS was one of the unfortunate recipients of that cut. And Nancy was given her pink slip, but then they said to her, hey, don't do your pink slip. Instead, work on independent films. And one of the independent films we've acquired at PBS is The Making of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So Nancy and I had to meet. She was at PBS, KQED. I was at Lucasfilm, and we met one day because George Lucas gave The Making of Raiders, which I produced, to PBS as a fundraiser.
Wait, didn't you win an Emmy for that or something?
Yes, I did. And the reason I won an Emmy is because good old Nancy Holt, we were just colleagues, I guess you'd say. She said, no, we're going to put this up for an Emmy. And she did. She saw to it, and I won it.
Wow.
I got it. Not here in Hawaii, but it sure is at home in Bolinas, California.
You have a place in Hawaii?
Yes, we have a condo here. The reason we have a condo here is not because we love Hawaii more than anything else in the world, but our grandkids are here.
How did everyone get to Hawaii?
Our daughter, Christina, I think she was going to Berkeley.
You have how many kids, by the way?
4 kids. Nancy has 2 and I have 2.
So Brady Bunch.
We have a Brady Bunch. 4 great girls, beautiful girls, 3 grandsons. So Christina, one day, I think she was going to a wedding here in Hawaii, and at that wedding met the guy who was about to become her husband, Solomon. And they live here off the grid. And
it doesn't suck, does it?
No, it's pretty good.
So can we move to Colombia?
Sure.
How do you get that call?
Good old Ned said, okay, Sid, the job is yours. Go do it. And I did for 2 years. And after those 2 years, I wanted more than anything to become an independent producer. We did great. We did Ghost, and we bought the rights to Forrest Gump and a bunch of other good movies. Here's where, again, life changes. And Uncle Phil not involved here.
He's probably gone by now, Uncle Phil.
Yeah, Uncle Phil was actually gone by then. But Peter Guber, who was a pal of mine, and his then partner, John Peters, called me and said, hey, very nice that you're an independent producer, but why don't you come to this new company we just bought called Columbia Pictures? John and Peter said, hey, come on, you'll be a big shot at our company. And I said, yeah.
Was Mark Canton there yet or no?
No, he was still at Warner Brothers, I think.
I'm trying to get a sense of the timeline, yeah.
Yeah, it was Peter and John and myself.
Did you and Barbara become better friends from your Lee Salters days?
She and I have known each other since those Lee Salters days.
She remembered you then?
She remembers in her own way.
That's lovely.
Whenever I see her, I haven't seen her lately. I think I will be seeing her again pretty soon now. But whenever I do see her, she kind of looks at me quizzically, as though she never saw me before in her life.
Do I know you?
Yeah, that kind of thing. But that's okay. She's still Barbara. She's still wonderful. And she still sang Miss Marblestone in I Can Get It For You Wholesale.
Marblestein.
One night, listen to this. You just sparked my memory. Go back now to those Salters days when she was on Broadway and I Can Get It For You Wholesale, and doubling at the Blue Angel after the show. And I had a girlfriend in those days, a young girl named Betty Jane, whose brother-in-law was Bob Chartoff.
Oh, Irwin Winkler and Bob Chartoff.
That's right. He wasn't a producer. He was an agent in William Morrison. He called his sister-in-law, Betty Jane, and said, hey, let's go to the Blue Angel tonight. Invite your boyfriend, whoever that guy is, Sid, and we'll see Barbra Streisand do a nightclub show at the Blue Angel. So way, way back, maybe 1961 or something like that. there was Barbara Streisand singing away at the Blue Angel. And after the show, we talked and all. Bob knew her a little bit, and we talked a little bit. But even now, she looks at me quizzically as though she had never met me before. But that's okay.
Hey, Sid, I want to bring this whole conversation full circle. And I asked you in the beginning what you were most proud of in life, and you didn't even hesitate to mention your kids and grandkids and spending time with the family. And it's a great answer. Well, you never got the answer to the second one, which was, what are you most proud of as you think about and reminisce now about your long and wonderful career in our business?
I got one for you, Kevin, I think. The movies have been great. I love every single one that I worked on. The big ones, the little ones, all that stuff. The people I've met in the industry have been remarkable. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that Academy Museum of Motion Pictures that's sitting there on Wilshire and Fairfax. And I'm most proud of it because it's now open about 4 years. And for 17 years before that, I and a bunch of others, not just me, but me, I bet, Kevin, kind of in the forefront of it, not maybe, really up there.
Let me just jump in here and say yes, and don't even preface it.
Okay, well, there you are, babe.
You, go ahead, were the spearheader of this dream 17 years before.
Yeah, okay, hard for me to say yes, me, but yes, me. And others, Frank Pearson and many others.
No, many people were important in driving it forward. But I'm saying the initial, you said we must have a museum.
Yeah, we must have a museum.
We have to have a museum.
Frank Pearson said it to me one day. He said, we must have a museum. I said, ooh, what a nice idea. And I took it forward.
Absolutely.
Took it forward. 17 years of my life. And I think I see it now.
It's a legacy that you're leaving the business.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really
totally.
do.
I couldn't agree with you more. Very interesting answer. I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but it's a fantastic answer. I was just going to ask you, what was it like to serve 4 consecutive terms as the president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences?
Proud as I could possibly be. I didn't even know how great the gig was when I got it that first year. I thought, oh, how nice.
When you got it, what was your reaction?
Well, I'd rather tell you my wife's reaction, Nancy's reaction. May I?
Of course.
Okay, so now we're at a board meeting and it's time to elect a new president. I knew I was up for it, but I hadn't expected to get it, and I got it. So when the meeting was over, I called Nancy right from there. No cell phone. I called phone on the desk there. I picked up the phone, dialed Nancy at home, and I said, hey, Nance, I'm the president of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. She said, great, get Jon Stewart.
Get Jon Stewart.
To be your host.
I know.
And I did.
I thought you were going to say, she said, great. Don't forget to pick up 2 lamb chops and salad fixings for dinner tonight. That's where I thought you were going with that.
No, she said, get Jon Stewart. My wife, who was the most wonderful, incredible, and most political animal in the world, said, great, get Jon Stewart.
Just the greatest. Hey, Sid, listen, we can go on forever and ever.
We could.
I want to thank you for a lot of things, but I especially want to thank you for the way you've treated me over the years, and your decency and friendship have meant the world to me. And I really want to say I'm grateful and I love you.
Thanks, Kevin. How very nice of you to say I love you too. Thank you very, very much.
To our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more insights into filmmaking, audience testing, and the business of Hollywood, I invite you to check out my books, Audienceology and How to Score in Hollywood, at Amazon or through my website at kevingetz360.com. You can also follow me on my social media. Next time on Don't Kill the Messenger, I'll be joined by one of Hollywood's most respected literary agents and champions of great storytelling, Bob Bookman. Until then, I'm Kevin Goetz, and to you, our listeners, I appreciate you being part of the movie-making process. Your opinions matter.